The first time my parents called me ungrateful, I was 17. I remember it clearly because it happened in my grandfather's kitchen, the place that always smelled like coffee and cinnamon toast. The sun was coming through the old window above the sink, and Grandpa was standing beside me, quietly washing dishes. My mother stood near the doorway with her arms folded. "You don't appreciate anything we've done for you," she said. I had just asked a simple question: why my brother always seemed to get everything first: the car, the money, the attention. Even then, Grandpa didn't say much. He just dried his hands slowly and looked at my parents in a way that made them uncomfortable. That was Grandpa's way. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't argue, but when he looked at someone like that, they usually backed down. That day, my father cleared his throat and said, "We're not doing this right now." And the moment passed, but the word stayed: ungrateful. It became their favorite label for me over the years. If I questioned something, I was ungrateful. If I didn't agree with them, ungrateful. If I refused to pretend everything in the family was perfect, ungrateful. Meanwhile, my older brother Jason could do absolutely anything and still be the golden child. Jason quit college twice. Jason borrowed money he never repaid. Jason crashed 2 cars my parents bought him. And yet somehow, Jason was always figuring things out. But me? I moved out at 21, paid my own rent, worked 2 jobs, and finished school on my own. And somehow, that still made me the ungrateful one. The only person who never treated me like that was Grandpa. To him, I was just Emily, his granddaughter who liked to sit on the porch and listen to his old stories. The granddaughter who helped him fix the fence when the storms knocked it down. The one who visited every Sunday, even when life got busy. He never said much about my parents, but sometimes when we sat together on the porch watching the sunset over the fields, he would sigh quietly and say something like, "Families get strange when money enters the room." I didn't understand what he meant back then, not fully, but years later, I would. The call about Grandpa came on a cold Thursday morning. I was at work when my phone buzzed. My father's name flashed on the screen. That alone felt strange. We rarely spoke anymore. I stepped outside the office before answering. "Hello?" His voice sounded flat. "Your grandfather passed away this morning." For a moment, the world just stopped. I leaned against the brick wall outside the building. "When?" "Early this morning. Heart failure." The words barely registered. Grandpa had always seemed indestructible to me. 82 years old and still fixing things around his farm, still driving into town every week for groceries, still sending me ridiculous birthday cards with $5 bills inside. And now he was gone. "When is the service?" I asked quietly. "We'll let you know." Then he hesitated, and something about that hesitation made my stomach tighten. "There's also going to be a will reading tomorrow," he added. "Oh, family only." I frowned slightly. "Of course. Jason and your mother will be there." The way he said it felt deliberate, almost like he was carefully choosing his words. "Okay." Another pause. Then he said it. "You don't need to come." The sentence hit harder than I expected. "What?" "You and your grandfather had your disagreements." That's a lie. We didn't have disagreements. We had conversations. But my father continued. "He told us many times he didn't appreciate how you behaved." I actually laughed in disbelief. "That's not true." "Well," he said stiffly, "it doesn't matter now." "What do you mean it doesn't matter?" "The will reading is private." My chest tightened. Private for who? "For the immediate family." "I am immediate family." "You know what I mean." I did know what he meant. My parents had decided, again, that I didn't belong. Jason belonged. They belonged. But I was the difficult one, the ungrateful one. "You're excluding me from Grandpa's will reading," I asked slowly. "That's the decision." "Did Grandpa say that?" Silence. Then he replied carefully, "It's what makes the most sense." The call ended a minute later, and I stood there outside my office staring at my phone. Part of me felt angry, part of me felt hurt, but mostly I felt confused because Grandpa and I had spoken just 3 days earlier. He sounded perfectly fine. In fact, the last thing he said to me before we hung up was something that suddenly replayed in my mind. "Emily," he had said quietly, "when the time comes, don't let anyone push you out of the room." At the time, I thought he was just being dramatic. Grandpa loved mysterious little comments like that. But now my parents were literally pushing me out of the room. I went back inside the office, finished the rest of the day in a haze, and drove home that evening with Grandpa's voice echoing in my head. "Don't let anyone push you out of the room." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table thinking about the last 20 years of family history. All the little tensions, all the quiet favoritism, all the times I had been told I was too independent, too stubborn, too ungrateful. By morning, I had made a decision. If my parents didn't want me at the will reading, I would respect that. But I also knew one thing for certain. Grandpa was not the kind of man who forgot people who mattered to him. Not me. Not the granddaughter who showed up every Sunday. So if there really was a will, then somewhere inside it, my name existed. And if it didn't, then something about this entire situation was very wrong. The will reading was scheduled at 11 o'clock at a law office downtown. I wasn't invited, but that didn't stop me from driving there anyway. I didn't plan to go inside. At least, that's what I told myself. I parked across the street and watched the building from my car. About 15 minutes later, my parents arrived. Jason stepped from the passenger seat wearing a smug little smile I recognized immediately. The golden child had clearly already decided how this day was going to end. They walked inside together without even glancing around, as if they knew I wouldn't be there. I sat in my car for a long moment, staring at the entrance. My heart was pounding harder with every second. Grandpa's voice echoed again in my head. "Don't let anyone push you out of the room." Finally, I opened the car door. The cold air hit my face as I stepped on the sidewalk. Across the street, the glass doors of the law office reflected the cloudy morning sky. For a second, I almost turned around, but then I thought about Grandpa sitting on that porch telling stories while the sun went down, and I knew one thing. If there was something he wanted me to hear today, I wasn't going to miss it just because my parents decided I was ungrateful. So I walked across the street toward the building. I had no idea yet that inside that office, a single document was about to turn my entire family upside down.
The lobby of the law office was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes your footsteps sound louder than they should. Polished marble floors, neutral-colored walls, a receptionist's desk near the elevators. Everything smelled faintly like coffee and printer paper. The receptionist looked up as I approached. "My name is Emily Carter," I said. "I believe my family is here for a will reading." She glanced at her computer. "Carter. Yes, conference room 3. Then she paused. "And you are family." That was technically true. She nodded politely and pointed down the hallway. "Right through there." My heart was beating fast as I walked down the corridor. The closer I got to the conference room, the more voices I could hear through the door. Jason's voice, my mother's, my father's, and one other voice I didn't recognize. The lawyer, probably. I stood outside the door for a moment, my hand hovering near the handle. I could still walk away, pretend I had never come. But then I heard Jason say something through the door that made my chest tighten. Honestly, I'm surprised she even thought she'd be in the will. My mother laughed softly. "Oh, please, your grandfather knew better." I closed my eyes for a second. Then I opened the door. The room went completely silent. My parents and Jason all turned toward me at the same time. Jason's expression shifted immediately from amusement to irritation. "Well," he said slowly, leaning back in his chair, "look who showed up anyway." My mother looked embarrassed. not because I was there, but because the lawyer was watching. "Emily," she said stiffly, "this is a private meeting." "I know," I replied calmly, stepping into the room. The lawyer, an older man with gray hair and a calm face, looked between us. "And you are?" he asked. "Emily Carter," I said. His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Ah." That one little word made Jason sit up straighter. "What do you mean, ah?" Jason asked. The lawyer didn't answer him. Instead, he gestured toward an empty chair at the table. "Please, sit down." My parents exchanged quick looks. My father cleared his throat. "I don't think that's necessary." The lawyer turned toward him calmly. "Mr. Carter, your daughter is listed in the document." The air in the room shifted instantly. Jason frowned. "How listed?" The lawyer ignored the question and opened a thick folder in front of him. "Since everyone is now present, we can proceed properly." My mother looked uncomfortable. Jason looked annoyed, but I sat down quietly and folded my hands on the table. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and began reading. "This is the last will and testament of Robert Henry Carter." Grandpa's full name sounded strange in such a formal voice. "Prepared 6 months prior to his passing." He continued reading through the opening statements, legal language, formal declarations. Then he reached the part everyone was waiting for: the distribution of assets. Jason leaned forward immediately. My mother straightened in her chair. My father crossed his arms. The lawyer turned a page. "To my son, Daniel Carter," that was my father, "I leave my vintage truck and the contents of my workshop." My father nodded slowly. That made sense. The old truck had always been his favorite. The lawyer continued. "To my grandson, Jason Carter," Jason sat up even straighter, "I leave my fishing boat." Jason blinked. "Just the boat?" My mother shot him a warning look. The lawyer didn't react. Instead, he turned another page. "And to my granddaughter, Emily Carter." Everyone in the room went still. The lawyer looked directly at me as he read the next line. "I leave the Carter family farm, including the house, the land, and all associated property rights." For a moment, nobody spoke. The silence was so heavy it almost felt physical. Then Jason laughed, a short, confused laugh. "Wait, what?" My mother leaned forward quickly. "That can't be correct." The lawyer calmly slid the document across the table. "It's very clear." My father grabbed the papers and scanned them quickly. His face slowly turned red. "The farm?" he said sharply. "Yes, that's 200 acres." Jason's chair scraped loudly against the floor as he stood up. "This has to be a mistake." The lawyer shook his head. "There is no mistake." Jason looked at me like I had somehow orchestrated the entire thing. "You manipulated him," he snapped. I stared back calmly. "I wasn't even here." My mother looked stunned. But the farm has always been in the family." "Yes," the lawyer said calmly, "and now it continues to be." "With her?" said Jason incredulously. The lawyer folded his hands. "Your grandfather was very specific about this decision." My father slammed the papers on the table. "This is ridiculous. I assure you it is legally binding." Jason paced the room like an angry animal. "This makes no sense." Then the lawyer spoke again. "There is one more instruction your grandfather included." Everyone turned toward him. He opened another envelope from the folder. "A written statement." My stomach tightened slightly. Jason crossed his arms. "Well, let's hear it." The lawyer unfolded the paper slowly and began reading. "If this letter is being read, it means my family is sitting in a room arguing about money." Jason rolled his eyes. But the lawyer continued. "I have watched my children and grandchildren for many years." My father shifted uncomfortably. "And I have seen who values family and who values inheritance." The room felt colder somehow. The lawyer read the final line slowly. "The farm goes to Emily because she was the only one who ever came back when she didn't need something." No one spoke. Not my parents, not Jason. The words hung in the air like a quiet verdict. Jason looked furious. My mother looked shocked. My father looked embarrassed. And for the first time since I walked into that building, I realized something important. This wasn't just about money. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. But the lawyer wasn't finished yet. He placed the letter down carefully and looked at us all. "There is also a final clause." Jason groaned. "Of course there is." The lawyer opened the last page of the will, and the moment he read the first sentence, I felt my entire world shift again. Because what Grandpa wrote next wasn't about the farm. It was about something hidden on the property, something none of us had ever known existed. And suddenly, the farm itself might not even be the most valuable thing Grandpa left behind.
Jason actually laughed when the lawyer said there was a final clause. Not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh people make when they think something is so ridiculous it has to be a joke. "Oh, great," he muttered, dropping back into his chair. "What now? A treasure map?" The lawyer didn't smile. He adjusted the document in front of him and read slowly. "My farm will remain under the sole ownership of my granddaughter, Emily Carter. However, the land includes a sealed asset agreement stored within the original property files." The words sounded strange. Even the lawyer paused slightly before continuing. "The asset in question has remained undisclosed for over 30 years and may only be accessed by the legal owner of the property." Jason's eyebrows shot up. "What asset?" The lawyer kept reading. "The instructions and documents regarding this asset are located in the locked cedar chest in my study at the farmhouse." My heart skipped. Grandpa's study. I knew that room well. The little office on the second floor with the heavy wooden desk and the big window overlooking the fields. But I had never seen any cedar chest. Jason leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "Wait, you're saying there's something valuable on the property?" The lawyer folded the paper calmly. "I am saying your grandfather clearly believed there was." Jason turned toward me slowly. His expression had changed. The anger was still there, but now something else had replaced it. Greed. "How valuable?" he asked the lawyer. "I have no information beyond what the document states." My father rubbed his temples. "This is insane." Jason stood up again. "No, this is interesting." My mother looked nervous. "Jason, sit down." But he was already pacing. "So let me get this straight," he said, pointing toward me. "She gets the entire farm, and now there's some mystery asset hidden there too?" The lawyer remained calm. "That appears to be the case." Jason looked at me again, studying my face like he was trying to figure something out. "You knew about this." I shook my head. "I didn't." "Come on." "I'm serious." He scoffed. "Yeah, right." But the truth was, I genuinely had no idea what Grandpa could have been talking about. Hidden asset? 30 years? My mind started racing through possibilities. Old documents, land rights, maybe mineral rights or something like that. But Grandpa had never mentioned anything like that to me. The lawyer closed the will folder. "That concludes the reading." My father stood up quickly. "This whole situation is unbelievable." Jason turned toward the lawyer. "So what happens now?" "Legally? Yes. The property transfers to Miss Carter within the next 30 days. Jason nodded slowly. "And the asset? That belongs to the property owner." Jason stared at me for several seconds. Then he smiled. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile someone gives when they've just decided something. "Well," he said casually, grabbing his jacket, "I guess we'll see what's inside that chest." My mother looked confused. "What do you mean?" Jason shrugged. "I mean, we should probably go take a look." My father frowned. "That's Emily's property now." Jason looked at him like that was the least important detail in the world. "Not yet." Then he turned toward me. "You driving out today?" "I might." "Good." He walked toward the door. "Because I'm coming with you." I laughed quietly. "No, you're not." He stopped. "Why not?" "Because Grandpa left the farm to me." Jason stepped closer. And that means the house, too." His jaw tightened. "You really think you're going to shut the whole family out?" "I'm not shutting anyone out." "Sounds like you are." My father stepped between us. "Enough." But Jason wasn't looking at him. He was still staring at me. "You don't even know what you're dealing with," he said quietly. "Neither do you."
He leaned closer. "Whatever is hidden on that farm, it belongs to this family." "It belongs to me," I replied calmly. His eyes narrowed. This isn't over. I believed him, because Jason had never handled losing very well, and now he believed there might be something extremely valuable hidden on land that suddenly belonged entirely to me, which meant this situation was about to get much more complicated. The meeting ended a few minutes later. My parents left with Jason, whispering to each other in the hallway. The lawyer stayed behind for a moment as I gathered my things. "Miss Carter," he said quietly. "Yes?" "I knew your grandfather well." That didn't surprise me. Grandpa had used the same lawyer for years. "He was a very careful man," he continued. "What do you mean?" "He didn't leave mysteries without reasons." I nodded slowly. "Do you know what the asset is?" He shook his head. "No." Then he paused. "But I do know one thing." "What's that?" "Whatever is inside that chest, your grandfather believed it was important enough to keep hidden for 30 decades. I walked out of the building a few minutes later. The sky had turned darker outside, heavy clouds rolling in from the west. Across the parking lot, I noticed Jason leaning against his car, watching me, waiting. The moment he saw me coming, he straightened up. "So," he said, opening his car door, "when are we heading to the farm?" I stopped a few feet away. "We?" "Yes, we." I shook my head. "You're not invited." Jason laughed. "You think you need an invitation?" I didn't respond. I just walked to my car. But as I opened the door, Jason said something that made me pause. "You know," he said casually, "Grandpa always had strange friends." I turned slightly. "What does that mean?" Jason shrugged. "Just saying, 30 years is a long time to hide something." He got into his car. "And secrets like that usually attract attention." My stomach tightened slightly. "What kind of attention?" Jason smiled again. "The kind you probably don't want showing up on your brand new property." Then he started his engine. "And if I were you," he added through the open window, "I'd go check that chest sooner than later." He drove away a second later, leaving me standing there in the parking lot with a strange feeling growing in my chest. Because Jason might have been bluffing, but something about the way he said that last sentence made me realize something important. Whatever Grandpa hid inside that cedar chest, other people might already know about it.
The drive to Grandpa's farm felt longer than usual that afternoon. The sky had turned darker as the storm clouds rolled in, covering the sun and turning the open fields into shades of gray and green. The road leading to the farm was the same one I had driven 1,000 times growing up, but that day it felt different, heavier, like the land itself was holding its breath. Jason's words kept repeating in my head. Secrets like that usually attract attention. I didn't know what he meant by that, but I knew one thing. If Grandpa had hidden something in that cedar chest, I wanted to see it before anyone else did. The farmhouse appeared at the end of the gravel road exactly the way it always had. White paint slightly faded, the old porch swing creaking gently in the wind. For a moment, I just sat in the car, looking at it. This place held my entire childhood. Every summer visit, every Sunday afternoon with Grandpa telling stories on the porch. And now it belonged to me. The thought felt strange. I stepped out of the car and walked up the porch steps. The front door creaked when I pushed it open, the familiar smell of old wood and dust filling the air. The house was quiet, too quiet. I walked through the living room slowly, running my hand along the back of the couch where Grandpa used to sit every evening watching old baseball games. Everything looked exactly the same, like he had just stepped outside for a minute. The stairs to the second floor groaned under my feet as I climbed them. I had been in Grandpa's study hundreds of times growing up, but now every step felt different, because this time I was looking for something. I pushed the study door open. The room looked untouched. The same heavy desk, the same bookshelves filled with old farming manuals and weathered novels, the same big window overlooking the fields. For a moment, I didn't see anything unusual. Then I noticed the corner near the bookshelf. A large cedar chest sat against the wall. I had somehow never noticed it before.
It wasn't fancy, just a simple wooden chest with a small brass lock on the front. My heart started beating faster as I walked over to it. Grandpa had really hidden something here. For 30 years. I knelt down and lifted the lid. The lock wasn't even secured. Inside the chest were several folders, a metal box, and an envelope with my name written across the front in Grandpa's familiar handwriting. Emily. My fingers trembled slightly as I picked up the envelope. Inside was a letter. I unfolded it slowly and began reading. Emily, if you're reading this, it means the farm is yours now. I knew someday the family would sit in a room arguing about who deserved what. That's why I left the truth here, instead of trying to explain it while I was alive. I swallowed hard and kept reading. 32 years ago, a large company approached me about buying the land beneath this farm. They discovered something valuable underground. My eyes widened slightly. Underground? The letter continued. They wanted to turn this entire area into a private development project. Resorts, luxury homes, the whole thing. I could almost hear Grandpa's voice as I read the words. But selling the land would have destroyed everything I built here, so I refused. I turned the page. They offered money several times over the years, millions eventually, but I knew one day they might try again. My mind started racing. Jason's words, secrets attract attention. The letter ended with one final paragraph. I left the documents in the metal box. Only you will decide what happens to this land. Not the family, not the companies, only you. I slowly set the letter down and opened the metal box. Inside were legal contracts, geological reports, and maps. One of the documents listed an estimated value. My breath caught in my throat. The land beneath Grandpa's farm contained rare mineral deposits worth tens of millions of dollars. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why Grandpa had protected the property, why he had been so careful about who inherited it, why he warned me not to let anyone push me out of the room. I leaned back against the desk, staring at the papers in disbelief. Outside, the storm had finally started. Rain tapped softly against the window, but my thoughts were spinning faster than the wind outside, because now I understood something important. Jason wasn't just angry about the farm. If he discovered what was hidden under this land, he would never let it go. And if companies had been trying to buy this property for 30 years, they probably hadn't given up either. I closed the metal box slowly and looked around the quiet room. The farm, the land, the secret Grandpa had protected for decades. All of it was now in my hands, and something told me this story was only beginning, because secrets buried underground rarely stay buried forever. If you enjoyed this emotional and dramatic story, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who loves powerful storytelling, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Trust me, some family secrets take generations to reveal.